set to begin with our session and our panel discussion on Marketers Talk, the post-pandemic customer experience and marketing strategies. It's a pleasure as we bring to you the very best minds from the country. A very, very warm welcome to our panelists. We have with us Ms. Dipali Nair, Chief Marketing Officer, IBM India and South Asia. May I also present to you Ms. Deepthi Sharma, Marketing Manager, India and Sri Lanka, Women in Tech, Ambassador APJ Sue Software Solutions. A warm welcome to Ms. Geetu Bhatnagar, Senior Director, Head of Marketing India, Oracle. May I also present to you Ms. Roshni Das, Director, Marketing Intel India. And putting it all together for all of us right here is going to be our moderator, Mr. Priyadarshi Banerjee, Head Marketing and Digital Solutions, WWM. So looking forward to a very fun session with all of you right here. Over to you, Mr. Banerjee.
Hey, thank you, Isha. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And of course, extremely excited, as well as I have said this before also, I'm very nervous about today's panel because of the stalwarts of the industry who are a part of this panel. And, when you think of the word tech, the companies, the organizations that come to your mind, these are flag bearers of those organizations. And I'm very, very happy that for me also, I'm also being a part of a session which is slightly different from the typical media sessions that I keep doing. So it'll be very interesting in terms of the learning for me as well. And I'm sure all our viewers across the platforms of the Economic Times and Femina are really, really going to enjoy this session, as well as get to know about the fantastic work that this far-back panel has been doing, especially during the pandemic. Let me give a little bit of sort of a brief in terms of what the agenda for today, so that we can straight away jump into the questions that I have for these panelists. We would all know that this pandemic has brought about a sort of a sweeping change to multiple facets of everybody's lives. And the way we buy and sell is one element of our lives that has changed dramatically this year. Customer experience marketing had already been on a very sort of an evolutionary path in this direction, even before even during the pre-COVID era. But the pandemic somehow has accelerated this shift, or so we all think. And of course, we'll get to know a little better. But over the past decade, if you look at customer experience marketing, selling has progressively acquired new dimensions, evolving from very simple product selling to an overarching sort of an agenda that includes telling a very engaging story, achieving the right positioning, differentiating yourself from your competitors in the market, focusing on retention, engagement, as well as a host of other customized strategies. So the broad area of discussion today would be centered around some of these new age visionary thinking that we have amongst us, and it'll be largely centered around digital transformation, which has become a buzzword. But do we all understand what digital transformation is? Followed by what is the future of marketing in technology, and ending with a little bit of focus on innovation as well. So without spending too much time on my spiel, I think I'm just going to jump into having these questions on board, and I would like to address a few of the people first in the panel. So Dipali, with your kind permission, if I could start with you. My first question to you would be, how did you see the shift in 2020, especially in terms of large enterprises in their digital transformation journey? And if you've not seen some of those things happening, then what have been your suggestions for such organizations, in order for them to succeed in their digital transformation journey? And maybe you may want to add in terms of how IBM has probably contributed to some of it. So yeah, over to you.
Thanks, PD. When you say during the pandemic, the changes that happened, I want to bucket it in three areas. One, me as a marketer. Second, me as a IBMer. And third, I think from the point of view of IBM and what we've experienced with our clients. I think one is that this was a crisis moment. Nobody was ready for it. And different enterprises who are our clients reacted very differently to it. And one thing came to our observation. that different brands within the same category. So I know people are saying that, this is what happened to foods, this is what happened to FMCG, this is what happened to financial services. But within that, if you really look at it, brands had started their digital transformation journey much earlier on.
Yes.
And the ones who had actually traveled the distance were better placed to tackle the issues that rose with the pandemic, whether it was in the area of customer experience, whether it was in the area of empowering their employees to work from home, or whether it was about protecting their cash flows, or whether it was about doing cost optimization. The organizations which had started the digital transformation journey earlier were better placed. The focus in the first 6 months was, I think, far more on people, whether it was a small enterprise or a very large enterprise. The first 6 months focus was clearly people. And I think after that, continuity of business in the next 6 months became a focus for every discussion. What we also observed, as IBM is, that CIO, CTO, or the technology office inside an organization became really relevant in terms of the conversations that were happening with them, whether it was the boards engaging with them, CEOs engaging with them. They were really, playing a mega role in organizing hardware, software, security, all kinds of solutioning that was happening. I think that's my first observation on the enterprises side. There is a lot of innovation that has happened. And I will, refer to saying that it's not innovation which has always happened in context of, design. A lot of that has also been serendipity. But organizations which took real great advantage of that. So, for example, Wildcraft is an organization which moved very, very quickly into manufacturing of masks from bags that they were doing. Right. I think they got the pioneering. They got the pioneer advantage, and therefore were able to. They were ready. Early to the market. The second observation that I have as an IBMer is of, the human spirit. We as IBM support some of the largest backbone companies in the country. Now, be it the banks, be it the telecom services, be it essential services such as, LPG distribution, you name the large companies and they are IBM clients. IBMers are part of their BCPs. Which means that in an emergency such as this, when nobody else was working in the initial period and a complete lockdown, IBMers were actually in clients' offices, ensuring that our banks work, payment systems work, telecom worked, all the things that we took for granted during the pandemic really worked. And I think there I have a lot of pride. I joined IBM 2.5 years ago. A lot of pride in what the IBMers did for the sake of client, society, not even looking at their own personal, harm or what can happen at personal risk. Let me put it like that. Okay, so that's the second point that I want to make, and I think to me that was really something that touched my heart. And the third side, as a consumer, as a marketer myself, I think a lot of the organizations that I was dealing with as a marketer did a very quick pivot. Okay, Economic Times, for example, who is one of the partners that we work with, and many other media partners, the pivot that they did in ensuring whether we wanted to renegotiate, some of the contracts, whether we wanted to delay some of the launches that we had, whether in organizing and providing digital solutions to us for the work that we are doing. I found the ecosystem did a great job in terms of pivoting. And then, of course, the team that I work with, I think we did a great job in terms of pivoting from an annual planning cycle to, let's say, a quarterly planning cycle, or re-looking at how our clients are changing the way they are thinking about purchase decisions, and therefore how we can assist them, and looking at the customer journeys all over again. And two interesting things that, me not as a marketer, but as a consumer that I observed, I think most marketers need to relook at segmentation. I suddenly, from a working woman who was not interested in kitchen ever, became a person who is consuming all the videos on interiors and is in the market to buy a new kitchen. So that's happened. And second, the emergence of word of mouth. The WhatsApp groups, which have become lifeline, especially in a city like Bombay, and I hear this is happening in other parts of the country also, densely populated, countries. The advocacy, the introduction of new brands, that word of mouth has become, very strong, and I suspect it will continue to play a role. The third is discovery and sustenance of very, very small local brands, what I call the homemaker brands, the small services brands, which are taking over and providing, essential services to us. For example, there's an app called Maitri that operates in Bombay, in the Parel area where we live, and the emergence of home chefs that we have on account of the Maitri app. So these were some of the completely new areas that I hadn't seen before, that I saw during COVID.
Excellent. And the point that you made about one very strong observation about human spirit, I think that's that's a common observation where, and especially a lot of women workforce, the way they've sort of the whole work-life balance. And as Femina, we conducted massive amounts of research because the entire sort of dynamics change, the whole matrix change. Women emerged as a very, very strong consumer segment as well. And the work-life balance that these women displayed is just fantastic. The way they managed all aspects. I think men found it a little difficult to cope up in the beginning, but I think there's been a sizable amount of them, sort of me included.
There's an HBR article which is documented that in the period of March to June 2020, in the 360-degree assessments done, women have been found to be far more effective managers.
Absolutely. I think the emotional strength also counts in this, and I think that's something that they brought on board wonderfully. So great stuff. Roshni, I want to move to you as an extension of this entire digital transformation conversation piece. While of course the pandemic, fortunately or unfortunately, also presented a lot of opportunity for organizations to establish very strong sort of connections with their consumers. Many of them are virtually, walking on eggshells to sort of understand the new marketing mix or the marketing mix of the new normal. What are these strategies that you would recommend to sort of circumvent around such, such volatile conditions where we don't know, because things are changing every month, so we don't know what's there in the near future. So how do you recommend them to sort of cope up with something like this?
Thank you, PD. So I was just reflecting on what Dipali said, and we recently had a quick session with one of our agencies, VML YNR, and I think they beautifully encompassed the thought of 2020. They said 2020 was the year of social, and 2020 was the year of social consciousness, which means that if you looked at both the vectors, there was the explosion of social, and the social would, we could break it up into three, and I'll come to, how marketing mix can evolve to take care of that. 3 E's and another E, where you saw huge shifts, right, in terms of, say, e-commerce. E-commerce went from electronic commerce to everyday commerce, which meant that people had higher trust in transacting online, right? Second was education. The whole hybrid e-learning has changed the way we are going to deliver education into the coming years. And you've bred a whole new class of people that are comfortable, with the online learning. The third E was entertainment, which was, saw a huge jump in terms of gaming, digital, OTT, etc. And there was also fun stuff that happened because of entertainment, right? Globally, they had like 600 million people using filters. I can imagine on Facebook and Instagram. So the fun aspects also being locked down. In the fourth piece, I feel complements with Dipali said, which was the edge to cloud readiness, right? As more and more data exploded across all these social platforms, a lot of companies had to think about workflow automation, remote manageability, and how do they bring cloud readiness? So those are the 3 E's. The second part of it is the social consciousness, right? I mean, there was more thrust on people and brands, to have a point of view socially. Consumers looked at brands that they trusted. So socially responsible marketing, became a pivot. Now, to your question on focus on what should be our marketing mix, I think one is internal, one is external, right? One is that I think that this is a great time where marketing has had the ability to foster partnerships, right? Foster partnerships of employee morale, working on product innovation, bringing finance together, bringing HR together, and deliver what was needed and was contextually relevant. So I think it put us in the seat of the driver very unequivocally. A second is, I think, that most marketers, most brands have to go back and reassess their stacks, right? Like instead of increasing their tools and capabilities now, how do they want to streamline their stack? How do they want to streamline stacks, say from edtech to sales tech, right? So reassessment of your stacks have become more and more critical. And most importantly, like Dipali also mentioned, is reassessing your consumer journey. Those who had invested in technology, had a better experience. So consumer journeys are no longer the same as they were last year. So I think these three are things that you need to internally pivot, to deliver a lot of things. Now, what are some of those things that we're going to foresee, and what should marketers be looking at? Definitely, brand experience is going to be pivotal, right? And a lot of it will be virtual production through AR, VR. A lot of it is going to be on the back of AI marketing. A lot of it, like I said, is back to basics, consumer journey assessment. And then a lot of focus is going to continue to focus on social consciousness and purpose-led marketing. So that's in a nutshell what I have to say.
So if I just, just pull out a question from what you said, it's important that you also mentioned about social communication being on the rise, and that's an important tool of how. So being a B2B organization, primarily, which obviously makes products at the end of the day, it's a very consumer-driven thinking that is important for a brand like Intel. How did social media or social communication sort of play an important role when it came to your business? And if you could share a few, throw some light on that, that would be great.
So I'll give you two examples, one consumer and one B2B. So it allows you to tell us how we straddled the focus. So the B2C example, of course, we're very proud as a team to have brought together PC Pathshala. And I think I've talked about it extensively, where it was the power of partnerships. It was the power of ecosystem, bringing together our retailers, our OEMs, our education providers to manage the worry bead of suddenly parents having to be educators, right? We launched this platform to help people to understand that, hey, technology can be your friend. And, having the right device with the right study environment, can help go past this. And because of which I feel like now hybrid online learning has found a lot of acceptance. So that was definitely one of our purpose-led marketing initiatives last year. On the B2B side, I would say that our association with AWS and with Career Launcher and the government of Delhi was that we launched something called aspiration.ai. So people could actually look at a lot of content made for education, hosted on the cloud for people with poor bandwidth, and it was specially done for government schools. So there, cloud played a very important role. And thirdly, another thing that we did, from a B2B point of view is that we had to quickly pivot, to look at contactless IoT solutions, which means that we had to start working with startups. And we created a really interesting IoT product with the startup called vSense. They created HealthSense, where contactless monitoring of, temperature, of social distancing became important. So literally, I think technology played a very pivotal role, and Intel and its team were able to work through, the B2C spectrum as well as the B2B spectrum with examples like this.
Great, and I'm sure we've all had busy years, but when you talk about projects like these, one can only imagine the kind of sort of days and nights that the entire team must have put together. So great stuff. Good to know all of this, Roshni. Deepti, I'm going to jump over to you and maybe ask you that whether through the lens of SUSE or otherwise, what are some of these innovations that you've seen? Roshni spoke about a lot of AR and VR coming into the play. What are some of these innovations that you've observed during the pandemic, and which you think will eventually play a very, very important role, in top management best practices? So, would love for you to sort of jump in and throw some light on that.
Well, thanks, PD, for that wonderful question. Wonderful inputs. I know experts are already covering up the key aspects, and I'm sure I'm going to add value to it.
Yeah, I'm running out of questions because things are already being answered before I'm asking them. So it's a great session. After a point of time, I think we will jump into Graham Norton kind of conversation.
Thanks, PD. Well, I hope everyone would agree. Last year, with COVID bombarding us, it was definitely one of the most challenging situations, and challenging even more for me because I was also a new mom last year. So it was a double effect for me. Thank you so much.
From a new father.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. So, yeah, as I said, it was a double challenge for me to be, back at home, be with the baby, work out along with her, and then back at in the office, the entire strategy got changed. You know, what I had been working before it, or what programs or GTMs where we worked along with our IHPs, CHPs, or partners, you know, almost hit a roadblock. Everything came to a standstill, and suddenly digitization, digital branding became the sanctum sanctorum of each and every aspect. And you wouldn't believe, just half an hour back even, I was in one of the biggest brainstorming within the organization, where we were still evaluating, assessing what new we can do it, what innovative ways where we can actually connect with our customers. So in fact, within Suze, what we had the theme, which was called "We Adapt, You Succeed." Today, it has been changed. It all has become innovation heroes, you know, innovate everywhere. So what I'm seeing, the way we are personalizing, the way we are innovating with our product portfolio, of course, remains same, but how we are selling it across, to what all platform we're selling it across, you know, has become one of the biggest ways. Social, you know, we had some of the key activities today, and since morning I'm just sitting on my laptop just bombarding it across social. Suddenly it has become a boom, you know, way to connect. And you wouldn't believe, one of the message where I posted, I got a quick response from one of the Sri Lanka Connect stating that I would like to take this particular services of yours. So that's a huge innovation which I have seen it recently, which probably social initially used to be more or less a PR and a branding awareness tool. But of late, with this entire COVID thing and everything turning out to be virtual, I guess digital has become one of the biggest innovation hero. And within digital, social is playing a very important role in connecting with the key customers, your key target base, whether you're doing paid campaigns or Google ads, or probably content syndication programs, which probably, you know, I'm working on one of the content syndication program, which I'm labeling it as King Kong. So that's a quite catchy term, King Kong. Con is nothing but content. So content is the king. So we're naming that as King Kong, and we're trying to kind of work and get that entire content syndication project driven up, get reached out to the set of the targeted audience, you know, and kind of drive the lead generation program. See, for every marketer today, I guess everyone would agree with me, whatever we do, wherever we go, or through whatever channels we do, at the end, we are always asked, what's the pipeline you have generated? You know, what's the lead generation you have? Everything just ends up there. What are the PR branding awareness program you're doing it? How you're promoting it to a set of targeted audience? So I guess, as I said, social definitely is one of the most intriguing channel. It is turning out to be innovation hero. So that's something which we are leveraging within SUSA. And of course, very actively, we'll be driving it ahead. Content across, you know, the third party sites, you know, the other organization, microsites where we upload it, also playing a very key role to promote it across. So I guess these two are some of the key awareness programs which we are driving it. As I already said, King Kong is one of the key project which we are launching it next week. So I guess this is definitely helping each and every marketer to drive their initiative, because as I said, whatever we do at the end, the mission of every marketer is, you know, how we are supporting sales and driving their pipeline. So I guess these programs will definitely churn it up. And just as I said, half an hour back, we were having a brainstorming, and I could see a lot of our sales who were never focused or inclined towards these channel digital platforms, they're giving brilliant ideas, you know, those intriguing, creative concepts around this, how we can work around customer success stories, you know, promote it across this, how we can have those video bloggings, how we can actually award these partners, prospects, customers, create those channels where we recognize them. So I guess a huge, humongous ideas which are coming out from sales, which was always considered to be very dormant in terms of these particular channels. So that's all from my end, PD.
Great. So Deepti, one quick question. Now, I obviously inherently this discussion will be completely focused on digital, because that's how, you know, the whole, whether it's a tech business, whether it's the opportunities out of the pandemic, all of that has steered everything towards digital. But is there any interesting bit of offline marketing that you can talk to us about that probably came in handy as an exercise whether it's to your B2B segments, whether it's enabling your B2B segment to communicate to their consumers in a better fashion. Is there anything in the offline space? Because you mentioned about awards and recognition and stuff. Of course, on ground was a bit of a challenge, but anything else that you've done in that space that we may want to sort of
yes, so there's one program which it's actually in progress, and that's more of certification program where we are certifying our partners, giving them going ahead of their ladder. So that's one program which we are implementing. Okay. And we have got a huge response, whether we have our IHP partners from HP to, IBM to Dell, Lenovo, Fujitsu, or any of our CSP partners where we work very closely with them, Microsoft or Google or AWS, because SUSE is always considered to be vendor neutral because of the operating system. So we kind of work, on these bundled solution, go as an operating system with these hardware vendors, software partners. So yes, one of the program, offline marketing, yes, certification program is one thing which is catching it up. And the other one, as I said, in fact, today we had one of the program with HPE. So that was purely a triangular program, focusing on HPE, SAP, and SUSE, where we're promoting this entire bundled solution to the set of the targeted audience. So that's the channel which we pulling it up in terms of what is existing and what we can actually create those programs and launch it into the market. So certification program is one of them. Recognizing the partners is one of them. Through their list of customers, trying to reach out to them is the other set of the targeted program where we're working very closely with it. Great.
I'm also going to pull something out of what you spoke about, and I'm going to jump over to Geetu's side right now. Geetu, I actually had a different question planned for you, but I'll come to that later. But because Deepti spoke about King Con and content being extremely important. By the way, just, back at the offices of Femina, we say content is queen. And, there's absolutely no drop-in weightage there. So having said that, Geetu, I know that you've been an endorser and an exponent of content marketing. How have you seen content marketing playing a significant role, especially during the post-pandemic phase, and where do you see it playing a very, very pivotal role? Also, considering that content marketing still is not equated to direct ROI, but the need of the hour for especially B2B businesses is that ROI is extremely important. Where do you see that equilibrium happening and that balance being sort of achieved? So over to you, Geetu.
Great. Thank you, PD. And thank you, Dipali, Deepti, and Roshni for, putting a great perspective there. Clearly, I was in a session, a couple of weeks back where I said that content marketing is dead. And the perspective was truly that it is, you don't call it content marketing anymore. Everything to do with marketing has to do with content.
Absolutely.
Clearly. So when I see content, I mean, if you really see in terms of content creation, it was 2008, if I remember correctly, which was the credit crisis, when the first Instagram post was, put up there on media. And today, if you look at it, we're talking about 40 lakh plus videos every minute, 5 million tweets, about 306 billion emails, 95 million photos and videos daily on Instagram. That's the kind of content. 2019, we were creating about 4.4 zettabyte of data in the digital universe. Let me give you a number. By the end of 2020, that number was 44 zettabytes. That's the huge upsurge of content creation. So what are we talking about? We're truly talking about 2.5 quintillion bytes of data that is produced by people every day. And if I remember correctly, it's about 18 zeros in quintillion.
I was just going to ask that. Yes. Okay, in terms of zeros, how many would that be?
Exactly. One is content is not being created by marketers or brands anymore. Content is being created by customers, by partners, by influencers. It's actually being created from anywhere. What is most important, what I see as content creation, now there's no room for strangers. Customers, they are expecting companies to know their businesses intimately and personalize the experience. So that content has to be hyper-personalized to be delivered to the customer where they are consuming that content, any device, any platform. Second is there is an immediate gratification that is needed. Even immediate is not fast enough in today's world, if you see. So customers are expecting us to be more proactive, anticipating their current and even future needs. So that's the kind of creation that has to be. Lastly, it's interacting on their terms, if you clearly see. Now, when you create, working with so much of data, so much of content, how do you really work upon, managing this entire thing? And if I look at as Oracle, Dipali mentioned that, she had a perspective where IBM was, in the first 3 to 4 months was focused on HR. We didn't get that kind of a time, because we also work with large enterprises. And I've been working with these organizations in their digital transformation journey, which is a very loose term. We've been working over a decade on that. But what I've seen post-COVID, it's digital acceleration leading to a digital resiliency, because this is what enterprises are planning now, because they have to accelerate and they have to be resilient, because uncertainty is the only certainty, as Gartner puts it. And I love that line, truly. So with us at Oracle, what I saw, we have more than half of the planet's data residing on Oracle database. So we're talking about banks, stock markets, air tickets, cellular data, critical government transactions, everything on that database. So when we are dealing with that level of data as a data company, what was most critical for us to customize our mission to help people see data in new ways. We had to discover insights, unlock endless possibilities. So what did we do? We realized that our customers were witnessing a huge surge in content and data. So digitally, all the time for them to be available, we had to work on the operations, get on a 24/7 operation for them. What was important, which made us work, we had an Oracle CX suite and autonomous data. These two elements of Oracle, I would say, products and services, ensured a data-first approach for our customers. So with the connected data, when you have an autonomous data, and you can churn, the content and information that you have in a fastest manner, and to move it on a cloud platform where you are, performance is there, security is there, scalability is there. And a classic example of scalability was Zoom. We are currently all on Zoom. We all know how that productivity platform really scaled, and they had to move on to Oracle Cloud to ensure that the platform was scaling rightly. So we had to ensure that there was a very smart connected intelligence. And when I say intelligence, the content that you're consuming, it was no more a standard marketing siloed process. You market to a customer, then sales get in, then customer service gets in, and you have different elements of consuming. Here, the connection to the marketing ecosystem was almost instantaneous. And as a marketer, what I saw, that marketing became the grandmaster of orchestration, truly. We had to ensure that the sales pipe was ticking. We had to ensure that the services inputs were given. We had to ensure that there was a lot of innovation coming in how we were giving content to our customer, how we were ensuring that their business models, which was digital everywhere, as rightly everybody's been talking about, was continuously working. So what did we do? We ensured that marketing became truly in the micro moment, because what also blurred PD, which was a very interesting piece that I observed, you were a consumer and a B2B enterprise person at the same time on the same screen. So in 1 minute, I was consuming, or, as a consumer, in the second minute, I was working as a B2B enterprise person. So you were booking a restaurant, or you were buying cloud services or a workload, in a matter of minutes. So those micro moments of experiencing became so critical that what information you were giving to the consumer at that point in time became so critically important. So marketing tools, became very important. Emerging technologies have taken a huge new shape. I'll give you a classic example. We've been talking about augmented reality and virtual reality as innovations in an enterprise B2B model. But all of us went through that Instagram viral where the Le Petit chef, where the dessert menu was being presented on the table with augmented reality before the dessert actually hit the table. So who would have thought that so much of innovation will come in through at any point in time? So I've seen 66% of companies use at least one technology, AI, intelligent voice assistant or chatbot or IoT within a span of within 3 months. So that is the kind of innovation that has, spurted in this new enterprise model.
Super. Geetu, taking from what you were saying, and I actually want to extend this to our other guests here as well. In terms of the emergent trends that you've seen and you just mentioned, um, any one particular trend that you're seeing currently is maybe in a space of ambiguity, that it's being talked about. We don't know what exactly it is. It could be AR. Of course, AR and VR, we've been able to sort of consume it or have had some sort of a first-hand experience with it. But is there anything that you think is still in that bubble of ambiguity and yet to, but as stakeholders of this industry, you will see that as an emergent force in changing the entire consumer experience landscape? Anything in particular that you want to put a pin on? And I want to throw this open to all our other panelists to also for them to sort of, put a pin on this.
PD, that's a great point. I, as a marketer and as a, member of Oracle, where I've been invested with a lot of innovations in technology, I don't see it as far, when our thermostat can see us and, adjust the temperatures when you walk into a room or a mall or a store. Phones can recognize, our smart speakers can listen and talk to us. I don't even know, maybe, how long until our refrigerators can truly hug us as well. So innovation is like, hitting us from all sides clearly. Yeah. And I love this, because this is a time, you look at Elon Musk, we've seen Bitcoins, we've seen the travel to Mars, we've seen how so many elements have exploded.
How has his name not come yet?
Absolutely, rightly so. So yeah. there's a lot that's happening out there. And I know in many small aspects, all of us as IT companies are brilliantly invested in. So I would like to hear from everybody else, because with the digital everywhere, one thing which I feel, which is strongly coming in, which is very, I would say, disruptive and different, which was not there. And I saw this with the Black Lives Matter movement, that social being so pervasive, a moment can become a moment, in a second, clearly. So what I'm seeing is that the brand ethos, the trust in the brand and the empathy in the brand has become very, very highly topical, which was not there. All of us are really going back, soul searching about the brand ethos. And one thing which I, learned a lot, which I loved, was the authenticity which came into a brand when Uber, they came out with a campaign in 2020 which said, "Thank you for not riding." Topical. Totally there. So I would say there is no one thing, but there are disruptions from everywhere. And there's a lot of innovation through new technologies and elements coming in, but we're going back to the brass tacks of who the brand is and how the brand should be positioned to.
I love the fact
sure. Sorry, go ahead. I'd like to add to, what Geetu said, and you said put a pin, and I was actually thinking of what would be my three, areas. I think that while we talked about AR and VR, right? For instance, I'll give you an example. Intel launched their 11th generation processors recently on this through this technology called XR, which is extended reality. A lot of production houses in the US use it, and we brought it to life. So I find like there's going to be a lot of focus now, with so much of fatigue of us being in indoor, to really elevate a product experience. And so that I think the virtual production and the qualities of using technology are going to become more and more critical. Right. I also find that the study on, like I said, e-commerce become everyday commerce, which means that, there is a lot of transacting happening across smaller towns, right? So when you look at smaller towns, it means that we should be able to deliver to access more easily. So I do find that because of Siri and a lot of voice assistants, voice will become more and more critical, right? And I think that's a trend that we can leverage pretty well. And I say this because we went from a country of literally scarcity to access, right? And as soon as there's access, it becomes a level playing ground. And when there's level playing ground, there's room for us to innovate on, opportunities like this. So these are the two pieces that I think are going to be pervasive. And then I feel like we talk about AI, but we don't see AI, right? For instance, image processing, recommendation tools. So the more data that's there, the more hyper-personalized a lot of choices are going to be for the customer, simply because now technology hopefully will become more and more all-pervasive. So I feel like these three areas of hyper-personalization will become very critical. And I do agree to, and I would contest, similar to Gitu on content is definitely queen. I don't think that's going anywhere. So co-creation, through analysts, through influencers, through the public, because they have a point of view now, is going to become critical. So I would bucket it in these four areas.
Content has become more democratic than it ever was, and I think it's only going to explode in that zone. Because that's one area where even my expertise would come in. So I would talk about it for hours and hours. Dipali, quickly over to you. Would you put a pin on something that you would see? And interestingly, Roshni mentioned AI. I know the work that has gone behind, IBM Watson and stuff. So is that something that you see as the holy grail at one point of time, or do you see something else currently brewing that will disrupt all of us? Yeah.
So I think, a lot of things are brewing. For example, the work that is being done in the quantum space, edge computing space, and blockchain. I think if you were to really ask me, and I would, also pick up what Roshni said on the voice side. I think the work that's happening. But, I think, PD, the important thing is not just the technology. There is a difference between invention and then invention becoming all pervasive. Right. And I think that's the difference that we saw in 2020, and which is going to be the mark of the future. Right. How does your ecosystem work to ensure that invention becomes pervasive? So when Roshni is giving the example of AI, becoming commonplace, where we don't see AI, but the usage is there in everything that we are doing, is how you should look at future in terms of, let's say, food safety relationship to blockchain. Okay. Or that authentic, ledgers to blockchain, right? Or that your device is becoming smaller and far more computing power coming into your hand because of the work that's going to happen in the edge computing side, right? And that IoT will really work with the whole voice interaction protocols, that will emerge for future. And as voice engines and, the voice tech, so to speak, progresses better. So I think it's the ecosystem impact that we really need to look at if we want to go from point A to point B. There is a lot of invention happening just now, but how do you make it, all pervasive? The second thing I also want to say that I think humankind has progressed always. We didn't have digital payments 20 years ago, and Gitu mentioned how Instagram, first time happened somewhere in 2008. I do think that we may be attaching a little bit too much importance to what's happened in the last 8-9 months, only because the acceleration happened in terms of adoption, in a higher degree. People had no choice, so therefore online entertainment, so on and so forth, really took off. So I think it's just the speed with which I will remember 2024. But if these inventions did not exist, the adoption would not have happened. So I think the scientists in the research labs, and IBM every year has probably the highest number of patents that we get in the area of research. When I remember that, and when I think of that, I said, invention will continue to happen, but how do you make it, how do you bring it alive for the common person? And to me, it was the year of adoption, therefore.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Dipali, for the points that you made. Deepthi, if I may ask, and we probably have time for one last question. I'm going to pivot a little bit from the current tone of the conversation, and I'm going to ask you, because you not just a representative of your organization, but you're also a Women in Tech ambassador. The classical notion of technology being a man's world, I basically want to understand, is it true? Is it changing? Has it completely changed, or it's a complete myth? And while I want you to sort of take the lead on this, happy to sort of throw this to our other guests as well for them to sort of step in and give their point of view on this.
Wow, PD, that's a brilliant question. I always wanted to talk on that. And I'm sure all my panelists are definitely going to add value to it. Yes, it is changing. Technology, which was always considered a part of the manly world, today, the women's are progressing into it. And trust me, today being the Women in Tech ambassador for APJ, I'm seeing a huge surge into it, because, currently, there are close to around 20 to 30 members of this Women in Tech where we are representing it. We're drafting programs, we are getting a lot of requests in terms of working around and cheering the women, that they are not just doing for household chores. They are becoming technology expert today. The way they are creating and building the revolution within the organization. Because my own organization, the CEO is a woman. It's being Melissa, and the way she is driving the organization, kudos to her. Because what sales play, we used to have it earlier, and today where are we standing? There's an entire 360-degree turnaround. She has been awarded recently as one of the biggest women technology specialist. The way she has brought the change within SUSE as a whole. Because what I have been seeing earlier and today where we stand, from those sales play to today, to a lot of containerization, to storage, to Kubernetes. And that's really helping SUSE to build up as a very strong brand itself, is setting up a huge, huge example. And I guess that's from where this entire Women in Tech initiative took birth, and it's been spreading across this entire SUSE globally, and where we have created a team which is called WIT, which is Women in Tech, and we're seeing wonderful programs. In fact, recently we coming up with an association, or you can say a community, where across our IHVs or CSPs we have some brilliant leaders, entrepreneurs, women, managers who are on boarded of this community, and they're sharing their example. They're setting the example, they're setting the stage on fire, and letting the world know that technology is no longer just a man's world. The way they're surpassing, the way they're creating, and carving their own niche today is itself is commendable. So I guess that's what a huge revolution I'm seeing it today.
Handling a brand like Femina, and I've worked on various aspects over the last decade on Femina, and now handling the brand, not just from a professional standpoint, but personally, I think it's been a evolving experience for me also, because I can say I'm a man in a woman's world working over there, and I think it's just been uplifting to another level. Great. On that note, I think we have sort of passed the timeline, and this conversation needs a separate session altogether. And I would love to sort of host you guys again, formally, informally, and let's hope that we continue this session. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for the amazing things that you've said, and I'm so touched by the fact that in spite of you guys being leaders in the technology world, words like soul searching and the human spirit, and the endeavors that you guys spoke about is still being spoken about and talked about. So great. Thank you so much, and all the best on your journey ahead.
Thank you, Preeti.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.